Hello and welcome to the Mystical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Katie Soul, and I am beyond excited for our beautiful guest today. But before we dive in, I wanted to share a really special offer that we have just for our podcast listeners. We're offering all of you 30% off our Mystical Living Group program. It's an 8-week program for accelerated change. We're really going to dive deep into what is your unique purpose, your unique magic, and how do you illuminate that out into the world. The results that are coming in are incredible. The transformation that's happening in 8 weeks is beyond my wildest expectations. So if you would like to take up that offer, use code podcast for your 30% off. And without further ado, I want to introduce you to the beautiful Lyrik. Welcome, Lyrik, to the podcast. Tell us, who are you really?
Oh my gosh, that is such a big question. Who am I really? I am, on an external way to introduce myself is I am the co-founder of WorkPlay Branding. We are a visual marketing company looking to really revolutionize the way business owners create content for their business and brand themselves online, and we're doing it in a really affordable way. And then as far as me as a person, I am someone that just cares so deeply about other people, the aesthetics around me, which is why I'm in this line of work. And I've been really on a journey of this year of really grounding myself in who I actually am. And so I think I'm still figuring that out because I'm 26, I'm almost 27 in a few weeks. And really just sitting in this transformation of seeing who I am, finding who that is, and being true to that. So it's been quite the journey.
Amazing. It is really remarkable knowing you, Lyrik, and your aesthetic, your magic, what you've built in the past few years is really incredible, and to be a part of it as a client too. We'll dive into all of that in a few minutes, but first we're going to just start by taking the elevator ride down from the mind where that human self resides with the fears and the worries and the to-do lists, and into the heart where the divine self resides, where your intuition resides, where your creatrix resides. And we do this in every podcast episode just to take a few minutes to calm our nervous system and transition so that we can really enjoy, whether we're in the conversation or we're listening to the conversation, we can be present to all the knowledge we're about to share. So when you're ready, take a minute and just gently close your eyes and find a nice resting place for your hands. You can maybe just rub them on your thighs, just soothing your body a little bit here and in the now. What's coming through for us today is an invitation, a request for us to ask, what is disturbing my peace? Just feel into what's coming up for you in this now moment. Whatever comes up is exactly what's meant to be. Let it boil to the surface. Could be a conversation, could be something impending. And just see it. Let's just see it for what it is in this moment. When we're in a state of control or approval or seeking safety, we're in a fear state and we're out of alignment with our natural creation state. And in order to get back to that creation state, we have to observe what's disturbing our peace, what's creating friction, in our lives. And as we bring awareness to this thing, maybe it's a person, maybe it's a place, maybe it's an event, maybe it's a moment that's disturbing our peace, we don't need to attach to it, but we can just feel it, become aware that it's there, and perhaps today, just for this moment, we can let it go. If you're willing to let it go with me now, you can picture a beautiful golden balloon forming right in front of your mind's eye and has this tiny crack of an opening. It's a magical balloon. And it's inviting you to just reach your hand in and drop that which is disturbing your peace. And when you're ready, you can just let that balloon float away. And through this gentle practice, it's a reminder that it gets to be that easy to let go, to be in a constant state of surrender. And as we build the muscles of letting go, we also loosen our grip on control and safety and approval. And we create space for more magic, for more creation, for more peace, and for more pleasure to come into our lives. You can take a final couple deep breaths here. Start to feel your body again. Feel your hands on your thighs, or you can even rub your hands together. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back into the state of presence with Lyrik and me. All right. How was that for you, Lyrik?
That was amazing. I feel like you're so good at this. I know that this is your line of work, but like you have this ability to just like, I don't know, I was able to drop in really quickly.
Beautiful. Well, that was a new one for me too. So we're learning together, which actually brings me in. I know we're going to dive deep into business and all of that jazz today. But first, I want to talk about channeling. I'm
Yeah.
about to deliver a module in our Mystical Living Group program that's all about channeling. And it's so important that we normalize that we do have this higher self, or maybe there's a being that you channel, or star family. So tell me, I know you've had your own mystical journey, and I would love to hear about what does the word channeling mean to you, and what's that look like in your own life?
Yeah. So I think it goes back to the first time I even heard the word channel. Like I did not grow up with this kind of world or frame of mind. It was actually an OG WorkPlay member. And her name's Melissa Seaman. I absolutely love her. She's been in the process for like years and years and years, and she's just become almost like family to me. And she was like, "You are a channel." And I was like,
Mm,
what? What does that mean, you know?
you are a channel.
And, and she was like, there's something different when you're behind the camera and you just are channeling something different than what I have even experienced with even like other photographers. And there's something different. And so, and she's funny because she and I never asked, but I never asked like what that actually meant. I was just more of a feeling like, okay, like what does this mean? And if you know our process, we do quarterly shoots. So I saw her every 3 months. And so I got to understand like this world and this terminology even more. And I think to me, the definition has kind of evolved and shifted as I've learned what that means for me. And when I quote unquote channel, I am really like, I'm in a deep state of trusting myself and listening to almost like, the nudges of intuition that you get on, it could be anything. For example, when I'm taking a photo of something of someone, I've learned to just say what is first coming to mind. Like when it's like, okay, do this, and I've learned to not put up that almost like filter or block in a way to like protect myself from like rejection of that person in front of me, or have it not be a good idea. And so I think everyone can channel, it's just about like
Yeah.
letting go of those like almost filters that we
Mhm.
place on ourselves because of, all of the things like society and like fear of, judgment and failure. And so being around someone like Melissa and photographing her from
Mhm.
like the inception of workplay branding, she gave me permission to do that. She was almost like encouraging me, or she allowed me to see what I was already doing. And
Mhm.
so then it allowed me to kind of hone in more and more on that. But to be honest, I think I've been channeling. So and that's just one area of channeling that I think that I do in my business. But from like a personal life perspective and some of my spiritual journey, I will say that I like to say that my third eye was almost like opened without consent in a way,
Yes.
because I did not.
That's so good.
Yeah. When I was in my early 20s, I was experiencing a lot of paranormal things happening around me. And so it was almost like the veils were so thin around me that it was like impossible for me not to fight it. And so it felt very um the opposite of consent, essentially. And
Yeah.
so I was almost like thrust into this like spiritual world and having to navigate it without any guidance. And this was before I met, Melissa, and before I had this company. And so yeah, it's been interesting, the journey. And then now I feel like I'm using it more as a superpower
Yeah.
rather than something that's just like happening to me.
Oh my gosh. That's so amazing. Okay, there's so many directions that we could go from this point. But first, I just want to speak to the audience for a minute to normalize channeling too, and to know that you are already a channel. And one way in that you might want to consider to play with this superpower is through automatic writing. It's one I recommend to clients all the time because it's a really quick and easy way to receive guidance that's from your higher self. So, what you can do is you can pose a question to yourself like, what does my soul need me to know today? It can be that simple. I'd actually wouldn't overcomplicate it in the beginning. I would keep it really, really simple. You can pose a question and then just see what comes through. Just write, draw, have fun with it. And through that process, you're channeling. And the way I like to explain it is we have human magic and we have divine magic or spiritual magic. And when you're channeling that spiritual magic. And you're a human living on this earthly plane. So sometimes we have to negotiate. It's really a relationship between our human and our divine self. And when we can bridge that gap, that's when the magic really happens. So, for example, I knew I was destined to leave corporate America about a year before I left. So, that's that spiritual magic, that intuition. But my human was not ready and hadn't built up the muscles of self trust and self worth and self confidence to do that. So I really love for you to think about it as a relationship between your higher self, your divine spiritual magic, and your human magic. And as we strengthen that relationship, then we get to really have fun and play and dance in it all. So just a minute just to normalize what channeling can look like for you and to know that you can do it starting today. And in many ways, you already are. You're channeling your social posts, Lyrik's channeling when she shoots. And all the time, we have this magic within us. So, Lyrik, let's back up and talk about WorkPlay
Mm.
because that's my way into your world. And I believe as we create these new patterns in the field, we get to intersect with some beautiful human beings. And the WorkPlay method is so incredible. I'll let you explain it, but I can gush about it all day because for me, every photo shoot is an initiation into the next level of my becoming. And that goes beyond me. It's my brand, it's my lived experience, and it's inspiring my clients to step into their next level of becoming. So tell us about the method, tell us how it all got started, and we'll dive in from there.
Yeah, so the process, so WorkPlay Branding is the company. We have a methodology called the WorkPlay Method. And essentially it's a year long. You can obviously stay in it for longer as Katie has.
Yes.
We always encourage that because it becomes a tool in your business that you just, you implement, you integrate into what you're doing in your business. And so on a quarterly basis, we essentially ask you, what's on your mind? What are the projects that you're wanting to birth into the world? Essentially, we want to create specific visuals on a quarterly basis to match what you're trying to create in your business, in your life, whatever it is, you get to choose in the process. And then we create visuals for it. And I think what is so powerful about this is because it's so intersected with what you're creating already in your business, in your world, in your life, that you get to now see a tangible mirror to those things when you create the content. So you can choose between photo or video content on any given brand shoot that we do. And because it's so there's no restrictions. Honestly, there's only a time restriction. We can't shoot like all hours of the night and day and whatever.
Well,
We
it is a full day shoot.
It is a full day. It's 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So you get a spacious amount of time to just create with us what you're wanting to create. And I think, like I was saying, is the powerful part of this is not only do you get to see that and step into that, is your audience gets to see that and step into it with you, and they get to follow that journey with you. And to be honest, the results have been amazing for WorkPlay members, because when you create without this restriction or if you have an abundance of opportunities to create what you do in our process, you start creating things that you start to create things that really hone in on the message rather than just creating to create, if that makes sense. So traditionally, you would want to stack it all into one brand shoot. That would be your content for the rest of the year. In our process, we want to be really intentional about what we're creating and create big visions for our visuals so that people actually can connect with it. So it's definitely a new way of creating content.
Well, that's what I love so much about it is you really disrupted the industry. So what gave you the bravery to do that?
Well, it's so funny. Someone else asked me the same question
Really?
the other week, and it wasn't almost like a bravery. I will be honest. So our monthly price point is what I think a lot of times what draws like this appeal to it. So it's $4.97 a month. And so it's a very affordable price point for a lot of entrepreneurs to be able to do this, create without restrictions. And we didn't get there. We didn't start disrupting there on purpose necessarily.
Mm,
Say like, hey, we're going to go in and disrupt this. What we
yeah.
did is we saw our skill set as a company, and it really was more of it came out of more of like a safety thing. So I
Okay.
was like, I really, in order to build a company and not disrupt, but like expand a company, I need to know financially how much money we're bringing in and how much money is going out. So like income, expenses. It's so hard to do that on a project-based standpoint. It's also
Does.
really hard to do that, like to get, clients into a rhythm when you're only working with them project by project. Like we were invested in their brand. We want a longer term relationship. It's
Exactly.
better for us. It's better for you. And so we just essentially were like, all right, let's go into a subscription model. Let's break it up over a year. And that price point came out to be $497 a month, which we were not looking at anyone else in the industry. We were just looking at what we were doing.
So
And
smart.
so when we put it out there, everyone's jaw was on the floor. Like, you're doing all of this for $497 a month. And we ended up disrupting by just by being ourselves, essentially, and
Beautiful.
doing what felt right for us, and not looking at an industry and saying we have to
Mm.
do what everyone else is doing. We so much had our blinders on in the beginning phases of growing this company.
Mm. And that's so important too, to go inside. And one of the benefits I found to being a corporate lady, former corporate person, is I didn't grow up in this industry. And so what's deemed normal or the path, I always get to come in with a little bit of a questioning eye, and certainly can learn from others and their experience. And that's beautiful. But really, when we can internally understand, okay, what's good for my nervous system? How am I feeling whole and complete in this process? What works for my business model? And then birth it out versus birthing from a place of looking at the external to do what we think we should do. That self trust is incredible. And I'm so glad that you birthed this into the world for all of us to experience, Lyrik. It's really phenomenal.
Isn't that
And
thing how,
go.
when you said safety, I think that's a huge part of it, because we I personally, as the co-founder of this company, did not feel safe moving forward in the pricing structure. And if I can't feel safe in my business and how we're doing things, then how can I possibly expand the company? And I think a lot of people they seek that outside validation of their product, their pricing. Even I've seen so many
Totally.
people ask, like, what should my pricing be? And it's like, what feels good for you, right?
Totally.
That's going to expand, that's going to radiate out. If you raise your prices like times 5 and that doesn't feel safe for you, no one's going to come into your business. No one's going to feel that magnetic energy if you don't have it.
Exactly. I talk a lot about this in my program too, is being magnetic. That Hollywood energy happens when you're wholly yourself. It's really that simple. I mean, there's a lot of ways that we get there, but really, that's it. Magnetics equals being wholly yourself. And you've really proven that through the WorkPlay method. You've magnetized all of these beautiful clients and a tremendously successful business because you are true to you. You are following your purpose. And I'm curious, outside of the WorkPlay method, what really lights your soul on fire, Lyrik?
So it's interesting because this has been a journey for me. I have been I think since I was like 16 or so, but I feel like it goes back even further than that. I have been so obsessed with this idea of entrepreneurship and this idea of creating. And honestly, I don't know if this sounds bad, but I am obsessed with how you grow money, how you create money. And it's just always been so ingrained in me. I've always been so interested in it.
And
And
you grew up with entrepreneurs in an
I,
entrepreneurial household.
I did. I did. So money was it was an interesting topic. I was so curious about it. I'm like so curious on how money equals this lifestyle.
Mm,
And I love this lifestyle. And it's like, it wasn't like about money. It was more about like how it flows through a household through you, and how it flows through your life, basically. And so it's interesting because as I've grown work play, that has been consuming my identity for the past 5 years. And so it's almost like in this new phase of life, I really feel a transition happening for me right
Mm,
now, in a transition mode of figuring out what the other parts of me are. And
mm,
so that is a journey I'm still on. But what lights me up currently, and what I'm, finding that lights me up as I'm like going through this transitional period, is my time and how I feel during my time, essentially, and how
mm,
I spend my time. And being very intentional with my time and the things that I create, like the small things in my world, whether it's like getting a bouquet from the farmer's market and just like taking the time to pick out each flower with the
mm.
florist, and like those are things that really light me up. Aesthetics really light me up. So figuring out for me, how can I infuse that into my daily life is something that just makes me really happy. So whether it's like cooking a really amazing meal, I love to cook because there's an art form to it, and making it beautiful, making it the best meal I've ever had, having a really beautiful morning routine that, like, from the cup in the mug and having it be a vintage mug sitting on a marble coaster, like these are small things that really light me up, and they create a life outside of work that feels fulfilling to me. Like, the I don't know, it's these small things. So I don't have a specific hobby, but my I'm really intentional about what I create in my life and what's around me, and the even the material things that come into my field. Hopefully that answers your question.
Totally. I am just thinking you must be outer vision in human design. Do you know your human design?
I'm a generator.
Your generator, yep.
Well, but I don't know anything past
Okay,
that.
we'll look it up after. I would be shocked if you aren't outer vision. Outer
Mhm.
vision is really about making life more beautiful, aesthetics, the finer details of just what makes things pretty and beautiful. I'm outer vision too.
Mm.
Um,
I can tell. I always love being around you because I always get so inspired. I feel like our styles are very different, but
so different.
appreciate the way that you create your aesthetic in your life. And I've noticed that since like the day I met you.
I feel the same way. I always love even just seeing your Instagram. They're just so beautiful and so you, and the way that you do your stories, although sometimes your font gets so tiny, Lyric. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful and really tiny. So I am not at the stage where I need reading glasses, but sometimes I question it when I look at Lyric's post.
I'm sorry. It's all about, like the ratio and like,
It's so
sorry.
good. It's so beautiful, but it's you get real tiny on there.
No, I do.
Okay, let's pivot a little bit and talk about something that you have had to let go of in order to grow. And I also just want to point out that you're in this transition phase and you're about to head into your Saturn return. So you're like right on time. So I'm just celebrating that you're feeling that pull and that shift right as the planets are pointing you in another expansion.
Oh,
So when we expand, we need to let go. So what's something that recently you have felt the tug to let go of?
yeah. It's so funny that you say that because I felt last year there was a little bit of resistance in me of this transitional period. Like, no, I need to be where I am, or where I want to be now. And everyone around me was like, what are you talking about? Like, you're 25, you're 26. Like, what are you talking about? And so I think there was a little bit of resistance last year in me of just accepting a transitional phase, accepting that you don't know where you're going to be in a year from now. And that's okay. You don't know who you're going to be a year from now. And that's okay. So
Totally.
I'm stepping into this transition era, I guess you could say, with
Mm.
more surrendering, more like, okay, what feels good and what doesn't feel good, just sitting with my thoughts. And so as I've been doing this, what has been coming up a lot for me is this letting go of comparison. So
Mm.
letting go of, I think when you are really into aesthetics, it can, and Instagram, oh my gosh, this app, I love it, but it feeds the thing that I have to let go, which is comparison. And letting go of that and allowing myself to sit with what I want and sit with what I think is beautiful and not what a curated version of
Mm.
beauty has shown me
Yeah.
whenever I pick up my phone. So that
Mm.
just itself is really, really important for me. I think at this phase that I am still learning to let go. And I think the way that I've been doing that is getting inspiration, from Instagram, from other people around me, but then also just sitting with myself and seeing where my ego is coming in and where like what I actually want.
Mm.
And this is coming up a lot in the wedding planning process. I just got engaged. It's like it's just such a mirror for me.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a mirror of like, do I actually want that? Or do I just want that to impress someone else?
Mm.
Do I actually want this aesthetic or do I just want it because someone else wants it? And so just sitting with that has been really important for me. So I think the overall umbrella is comparison, but there's little things that I'm just noticing that having to just sit with, okay, where is this coming? How is it feeling? And identifying it and being self-aware of it. I think I'm only at that part. I don't know if I'm at the part of letting go just yet,
Yeah.
but we're getting there.
And the first step is awareness, right? Because we can't let go of something that we're not aware of. And it's so beautiful, and you're pointing out something that comes up for so many under this umbrella of comparison. And when we also have tools like Instagram or other social media platforms that really are forcing a level of comparison and external validation, you get likes and you get comments and you get, it can really make you question what is true and what is real and what am I really trying to do here. I recently started a whole new Instagram account and it's been so refreshing because it really is just about producing content that's true, it's on my heart, and it's in the moment. I don't schedule it out, I don't plan it. It's just when it comes through and it wants to be birthed, and I don't get caught up in the metrics. And we'll grow. I grew the first one rather quickly. This one will grow, but it has a different frequency, it has a different energy because I am approaching it differently 18 months into my entrepreneurial journey. The things that mattered to me in the beginning are really different now, and I've just let go of a lot of layers of how to grow and things that I learned from the external. And I know that I will magnetize the right soul clients to me by being authentically me. And so, just like you in the wedding process, and even I'll have to share the story of our photo shoot. So, Lyrik, just a couple weeks ago, Lyrik and I were in Miami, and her team does this amazing thing where they send different venues to you in advance so that you can really feel into the right venue that you're leaning into. There's a whole process and you answer a whole bunch of questions about what you're birthing into the world, and then they kind of come back to you with some venue options. So one that the team sent me was like so amazing, and I was just obsessed with it. I was like, that's the one, let's book it, let's go. And the day of the shoot, we're having a great time and just flowing with things. And we're driving up to this particular Pure Space venue. And we get a call from the host of the Pure Space. She's like, you can't come. There's cops here, and yeah, I don't know what's happening. They're shutting the building down. Like, and so Lyrik and I are just looking at each other. We keep driving. We're like, we'll figure this out. It can't be that bad. And so she calls a few more times, and she's not there, this host. And so she's not on the ground. So I'm like, well, we're on the ground. We'll go figure it out. So we pull up, we park, we don't see any cops. She's on the phone. Well, they're undercover cops, and they're in this white Jeep, this white van. So I walk up and I see this white van. There's a couple guys. And so I'm like, hi, are you the undercover cops? Lyrik's in the car at this point. And they look at me like, you're like, who are you, lady? And they're like, no, we're not. We just work here. And so I say, well, do you know anything about undercover cops? And they say, yeah, actually, they just came. They just shut this whole building down. They shut us down. So at this point, the whole photo shoot's really revolving around this location. And the universe is like, no. So we call back the host, and she says, anyone that steps foot in the property is going to get arrested. So Lyrik and I decide, probably not the day to get arrested. And so it was just an in the moment, letting go, surrender experience. And we ended up having the most epic day. Everything worked out beautifully as it was meant to be. But when we're in a situation like that, we always have a choice. Do we want to stay in like the fear, the control, the safety, the approval, the hanging on to something, as frustrating as that experience was? Or can we just let go and birth into the creation of the new? And thankfully, we both let go and we're able to birth into the creation of the new. And I share that to illustrate, like, this stuff comes up in real life, whether you're planning a wedding, a photo shoot, or a conversation that you have to have at supper. This is the practice, is when we can just continually surrender to the flow of life. Like, all the good is coming to us. I heard this analogy just this morning. It was really great. And the man was describing, so often we think of ourselves like climbing a hill, and we're trying to get to the top of the hill. But what he was saying is, what if we are supposed to enjoy the midpoint of the hill, and that everything from the top of the hill is naturally flowing to us like a stream? It's just flowing right into us. And all we have to do is just let go of the limiting beliefs and the old habits and the photo shoot location and just receive. And it was such a good example, a visual that really stuck in my mind, of surrendering to the flow of life. So that was my take on the photo shoot experience. Tell me about, how did that feel for you? We haven't really debriefed on it.
Yeah, it's so funny because I do, this is my job to do things like this.
Yeah.
The letting go, I actually am not attached to, well, not, I don't want to say I'm not attached to the outcome of the shoot. I just know that the outcome, no matter where we are, will be good, because I trust myself behind the camera to make it good wherever we are. And so when I see things like this, because stuff like this happens literally all the time, every single shoot,
every single shoot.
Yeah, there's a level of this happening every single time.
Totally.
And so I almost get personally used to, something happens, we pivot, and almost always it's either as good or better than what was already planned. And so I already have this inner knowing of like, hey, I know that this is going to go well either way. We have lots of time, right? We have lots of time to create. So really for me, it's just about creating a space for you to have the ability to let go, to not have my own, thoughts interfering with your process of letting go of something, and allowing you to kind of say, hey, this is what I want. And because what you want at the end of the day is what matters for the outcome of the shoot, for it to be a successful shoot, right? And so I can't really help you there. I can't help you define what you want. Only you can do that. And so
Mm.
in that moment, I know that everything will turn out, and I'm going to let you make the call on certain things, and I'll follow your lead on that. But then when it comes to my domain of creating, I already trust myself there. I know that's going to be a slam dunk for us.
Amazing. And you did. You really let me flow with it and make the call. And what was so funny about it is I had been on your podcast right before, and I was talking about, and I thought, I was talking to other people who might step into this method. I was like, you just got to go with the flow, and every shoot things go awry, but it always works out in the best and the highest good, literally just a couple weeks before the shoot. And so I guess I was really saying that for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just so good. So tell us, you're about to get married. This is very exciting, and you're stepping into a new phase of life. And as you go through this transition, what is present on your mind about the you that's a wife, the you that is a married woman?
Oh my gosh. Oh, I don't know if anyone has asked me this. And
That
so
just
I don't
came
know.
through, Lyrik.
I know. Well, this is great. We can kind of figure this out right now for everyone
Perfect. We'll
listening.
workshop it.
I know. I love it. For me, I I see relationships as a mirror in my
Yeah.
life. I think I've always come with that stance on relationships, but as I'm getting older, I'm seeing everything as a mirror, like my business as a mirror, relationship.
It's all a reflection.
Yeah. And so, but relationships, I think, are my favorite mirror, because that's where you just see it's like instant, where it's like you don't even realize it's coming at you, some sort of trauma, childhood trauma,
Whoa.
generational trauma. It like comes at you, and like there's just no filter. It's just one of those things where it's just like, I don't know. The veil is really thin when you're with someone else, you're living with someone else, you're sharing finances, you're sharing like hopes, dreams, the good, the bad, the ugly. And so I love it. I love being in that. Um, and so moving into this phase of life, I don't know if I identify as a quote unquote wife, or like what all of those things like what comes with all of that. I think what I'm seeing in myself is a lot of like, oh, I don't know, there's a lot of resistance around like even like sharing finances, and I'm like, where's that resistance coming from? And so using that as a mirror and seeing like, oh, there's like some level of trust that I like, some previous stuff that I have to work through, and like working through that, because when I look at what I want that relationship to be and ultimately what I want, and then I look at all the ways that I block that in a transitional period, I'm like, oh, okay, so this really has, the only thing that has to do with anything is me, and
Oh,
where I'm making these blocks or these things that are opening up things and like seeing that. And so because I'm still in the transition, I'm not a wife yet. I think that that is a lot of what I'm doing. I'm trying to define what the vision is for that side of my life.
yeah.
Doing it with someone else is also very interesting.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we're so in sync with who we are and what in our values around these important things, that that part isn't a lot of resistance, but a lot of resistance in myself of, why do I have a block here? And I know that if I don't address it now in this transitional phase, that it will show up, it'll just show up later.
Yep.
So I think that that's a lot of what I'm doing right now because I don't know, I haven't defined it yet. I think the transitional period is about defining, and while you're in it, you haven't, it's not a complete picture yet. So
Totally.
that's a little bit about how I'm navigating that.
I love it. You're in the field work, you're like
Yes. Yeah.
in
And
the incubation.
I feel like I don't know, the world is, we want to define it, and I don't think we stay a lot in the transitional piece of like not knowing because it's
The
so
flow.
hard to explain. It's so hard to like, it's like people don't want that. People want the instant gratification, and like just not knowing sometimes is hard for the external world to accept. But I'm getting more comfortable with just saying, I don't know what that looks like. And I don't know what that's going to be or how I'm going to feel about it yet, but I'm in the process of figuring that out.
So beautiful. And similarly, you've shared to me the inner work that you did before you magnetized your partner into your life. And so share a little bit about that. I'm sure the audience would just love it.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it was almost like a shift happened. I distinctly remember the shift in myself, and it was right before he was, so Peter, my fiance, was the first person I went on a date with after I felt the shift in me, after I defined what
Wow.
that shift was.
My gosh.
So I really,
There's a bunny, the sign of fertility, like hopping across the yard.
no way. Oh,
So good.
I love that. That makes me happy. Yeah. So, I mean, what had happened in the past, I think all of my previous relationships, there was an element of I was trying to make them like me.
Yeah.
Like I wanted them to have the same behaviors as me. I wanted them to almost like morph into me
Yeah.
and be who I was. And,
Mm.
there's a whole can of worms there, but what it created was this sense of like resentment with that those previous partners towards me. There was resentment from me towards them because I'm like, why aren't you like me? And they're like, why are you trying to change me?
Yeah.
Or it created this sense of competitiveness where it's like we're competing against each other of who can be better, you know? And that doesn't breed a good relationship. And so what I realized coming out of all of these past relationships in my life was I need to literally focus on me. I need to focus on what I want. And quite literally, it does not matter who that person is, how they behave. What matters is how I am reacting to it or how I am like internalizing it. And so when I came into honestly, my first date with my fiance, I said, it doesn't matter if it works out. It doesn't matter if he likes you or not. You like you. You're on your own path, right? You're building WorkPlay branding because at the time it was not even a company at the time. You're doing all of this and that's your identity. You're not going to make this person your identity just
Oh.
because, you think they're cute or like, they're giving you attention. And so carrying that energy into the relationship
Mm.
allowed me to really keep everything, allowed me to keep my independence, but allowed him to keep his independence. And we then get to just choose to be together.
Yeah.
And I think this gets harder when you get more deeper into a relationship.
Yeah.
So for example,
Mm.
when he's in the process of switching careers, I could have put on my entrepreneur hat and told him exactly what to do and push him to like say, oh, grow, like be like me, grow a business, quit
Yeah.
your job. Like what? He doesn't, that's not him, right? And
Yeah.
so I made a conscious effort as he was starting to like say like, I think I need to switch careers, like I'm not feeling fulfilled here. I made a conscious effort to let him go through that journey himself and just be a supporter,
Mm.
not even a guide, just a supporter.
Yeah.
And I think because sometimes especially as women, when we get
Yeah.
into
Well,
that like mothering
guide.
guide,
Yeah.
you know, we then become like it breeds a resentment, I think, in us and them.
Yeah.
And being very firm in myself. It's not even that I'm telling this to him. I'm just being really firm with myself of I'm not going to even give him advice, right? Because I have a
So
tendency
good.
to, yes, I have a tendency to do that. I know that about myself. So I'm just going to just support, just be like, whatever you need to do, I will support you. What he needed to
Mm.
do was move 3.5 hours north of Miami, my favorite city, the city where I'm like, oh, I feel so alive. And I'm like, you know what? I want this for you and I'm gonna support you in this, but I'm not going to hold your hand as you go through this journey because this is your journey and yours alone to build this future. And now I think, going into marriage, it might look a little bit different, but at the time, there is a boundary of you're you and I'm me, and we're not married yet. And so I can't save you and I also can't help you build your life until we're in this almost agreement that we're going to build our life together, which I think is marriage. So that's how it's been.
Oh my gosh. That was packed full of gems. So I'm just going to highlight a couple things. One, you moved out of the fear state where you weren't seeking control or approval or safety in another. And I know one thing that we haven't touched on is you're really firm on taking self responsibility, as I am. And so I felt a theme there where you took self responsibility for doing you and building this beautiful, gorgeous life for yourself. And that's the outcome when you're wholly you, when you're whole in and of yourself, then you naturally magnetize. And through that process, you shed a lot of limiting beliefs and old habits and ways that you had done it before that no longer worked, no longer served you, and weren't getting you the desired outcome. So bravo, Lyrik. I think it's a beautiful example and such a good illustration of how when we focus in, because it's always an inside job, right?
Always.
That's when life really manifests the most beautiful miracles. And often they're not the miracles that we're on some vision board outside of ourselves. We're just opening up to the natural flow of the universe.
Yes, I agree.
So, Lyrik, as we close out, tell us all the places that we can find you and connect. And I am an affiliate of the WorkPlay Method. So, in partnership with WorkPlay, I'll share our affiliate link. So, if you're interested, you can sign up there too. But, Lyrik, tell us all the places that our mystical living audience can connect with you.
Yeah. So if you want to connect with Workplay Branding, it's at Workplay Branding on Instagram or workplaybranding.com. Pretty much Workplay Branding everywhere. If you
You're
want
so
to
good.
yes, we have the brand pretty easy to find. And then if you want to connect with me personally, I share behind the scenes of growing workplay branding. I love doing that. All of my aesthetically pleasing Instagram stories. You can view those all at Lyrik, Lyrik .fryer, Fryer, and send me a DM. Tell me what you liked about this episode.
Oh, thank you so much, Lyrik. Any parting gem of wisdom for the mystical living audience before we sign off?
Hmm. I would just say trust the phase of life that you're in, trust and lean into it. Like make it fun. Just because it's a building phase, just because it's like transitional phase doesn't mean it can't be
Mm.
fun. It doesn't mean it's not where it doesn't mean it's, you haven't gotten what you wanted, right? So let it be fun, enjoy the journey. How I
Mm.
like to do that is through aesthetics, and how you like to do that might be through something else, but figure out what that is so that every single day can be something magical, something beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much, Lyrik, for shining your light into this forum today. You are a total rock star, and I am so grateful to know you, to experience you, and the beautiful work and amplification of women that you are bringing into this world.
Thank you so much for having me.